Making magic visible, knowing we are powerful, our direction. Spreading joy and harmony in our joint discovery, finding connection. Ritual
Connected through the magic of ritual. I'm Michelle.
I'm Kelly.
And I'm the special guest series.
We are your hosts and fellow travelers. So let's take a nice deep breath in and out and start this journey together.
All right, a big part of ritual is celebration and honoring change and transition. And so that's why we felt it was very important to do a podcast launch party. Of course, we have to time it around the spring equinox because, seasons and all that. So today's talk is going to be about seasons and seasonal transitions. And we hope you get a lot out of it.
Thank you.
Harvest that knowledge and share it and spread it with community. I'm already crying, so yeah. So, where are you at? Yeah, thank you.
That's really beautiful, Michelle, going on. And we took this kind of macro approach of like zooming out and seeing what season am I in, like in my life, summer, fall, winter, spring. And that really got me reflecting for 2 days of what season am I in. And I realized, so I turned 35 last year, and Siri taught me this, that every 7 years, Siri please correct me, but your cells regenerate.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
You basically become a whole new being.
And yeah, you don't have any of the same cells that you had 7 years ago. Crazy.
So then I was thinking, okay, so from, what would that have been? 28? I can do that. For those last 7 years, I think I was more in winter, and now I'm entering spring, starting last year. And that also kind of links up with my Saturn return, if anyone follows those teachings. And yeah, I really went through a tough period. That was a really hard winter. There was loss in there, just turmoil for different reasons. And it just feels really honestly amazing to have turned 35 last year, like fresh cells. And I really feel like I'm in this spring place, but like freshly in spring. So it's really paralleling what's happening right now of sometimes, the wind feels crazy or the weather can be on and off, but yeah, it feels good to be arriving in this new season.
Winter is kind of that death and the saying goodbye to things that need to go, and that might be you sometimes. And then there's these kind of like more minor arcana types of seasons in your life where these big themes come forward over and over and over again, and there's cycles around that. And there's the annual cycles, like every year there's a seasonal cycle, and then within that period of time you might be going through, I also think especially like people who menstruate experience like a lot of ups and downs cyclically, and some people have like mood things that kind of experience ups and downs, that's in the short term. So it's really just trying to think about how many different ways cycles play out in our lives in seasons, a little bit more in like the minor arcana way. Like I feel like I've had, like the pandemic was kind of a big shift. It felt kind of like a seasonal change, like in my mind, but recognizing that spring is kind of a time of renewal, of newness, of possibility and opportunity, or whether this is truly spring or summer. And then summer is a time of sunlight, of activity, of taking action, or being around community and being around people, and it's a time to be like planting, like, and honoring those plants, taking care of those plants, and showing up for those promises that you've made, basically. So it can be a really celebratory time, and it can also be a time of a lot of hard work, and a time when you really have to kind of like show up for other people in your life. Become still. When we become internally focused, we start to go deep within, and we allow rest, we allow recovery, we allow silence, and we also trust that there are to understand the seasons.
Yeah, the process, celebrate, grieve the seasons.
Mm-hmm. I definitely noticed that, like, I was redoing my website recently, and my website was made in the winter, and all the colors are like dark and like earthy and like very. I always want to paint the stars. I always want to do like constellations or just like night scenes in winter. It's a lot more peaceful. And then, you know, I was looking at my old website, which I'd made in the summer, and it's just like bright colors and like white and all these things. So like, I definitely feel like I have this like two sides to myself. Like, there's a part of me that wants to be playful and weird and out there and just like let it all hang out. And then there's another part of me that wants to be very like hold that space, be very reflective, and focus on like the sacred and the mysterious. And so my art, I definitely think, reflects that in a lot of ways. I'll notice that I'll be doing a lot more of just like big painting during like spring and summer, just kind of being like, just get it out there, doesn't matter, just like play around with colors, like whatever. And then in the winter I do a lot more like smaller, like more careful, just kind of meditative art. So.
Yeah, that's really cool how it maps on to the seasons. I love that.
It's so beautiful, everyone on the table.
Yeah, I made it. Should I grab it?
Yeah, here, I'll grab it for you.
Okay. I do silk painting, which is kind of like batik, if you know about that, but this is like, it's wearable art. And so this is a silk scarf that I made.
It's gorgeous.
That represents kind of like the spring energy. And I actually made this because of, I don't know if anyone's ever seen that movie What Dreams May Come, but it was like with Robin Williams way back in the day, and he like has to go through like all these trials and tribulations after his wife dies to like make peace with her death and come find her and all of this. And there's just this moment where he finds kind of what looks like his heaven space, and it's just this big garden full of paint. It's all these like flowers that are just made out of paint. He's just running through it, like getting covered in paint. And that just really touched me a lot, that scene. It was so joyful and also so sad and beautiful. And so this was kind of my interpretation of that, of being like, you know, you can have a joyful experience, but there can also be this aspect of like pain and sorrow and darkness in there. So.
Kelly, Sarah wants to see it.
Okay, let me bring it over. Hold on. Okay.
And then you can share about rituals of the month.
Yeah, this is my ritual of the month.
Yeah.
I'm an artist too, guys.
Artists for everyone, Michelle.
It's not about the destination, it's about the journey, okay? But my idea was that space of transition and trying to find the beauty in it, and this is kind of like where I'm coming from and where I want to be, but the middle is like this combination of them, and like the tension there, and how that can be beautiful, even if I hate it a lot.
Beautiful. It's like, I like the cool but still sunny weather, and I love like the shift of like the seasons, where it starts to be like the trees start to change, you start to kind of get to see them like celebrate their last hurrah, and I just think that's really beautiful. So,
Amazing fall.
ooh. I mean, I think Colorado has beautiful falls in general.
Yeah.
Anywhere
really
that I
do.
can see the leaves turning, I love being able to do that and honor that transition. Yeah, not a specific place. I guess I go to Kenosha Pass a lot. Classic. You like that, yeah? Classic.
Yeah. Oh boy, you know I'd be answering that. I'm fall too, Siri. I But I love the transition from summer to fall.
Yeah.
I think that's why I love it. Like, we're speaking to the transition from winter to spring, like the one I feel like I'm in. It feels harder in a way, but from summer to fall, it's like, I just get that breath of fresh air. Specifically, I love visiting my family. They live in Michigan, and I'll be just like by the pool, and I'm soaking up the sun, but you feel that hint of fall breeze, and it is heavenly to my nervous system. Like, I can even feel it right now as I'm speaking.
Michigan has beautiful falls.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
I was just gonna jump right back. I thought you all knew that fall was my favorite too, so I was gonna jump right into it. But it is so interesting how a lot of people really feel connected to that transition in fall, but not as much in spring. When like we think of that, the transition to go into a like colder, darker time of the year would theoretically be harder. I wonder why that is for people. Like, maybe we really do crave that inwardness.
Yeah.
We've all just been lying to ourselves this whole time.
That is really interesting. Well, so it's my mom, dad, brother, and I, and we all have different favorite seasons. So none of ours are the same. And my dad's is spring, so I'll have to ask him. Yeah.
We've talked about honoring the seasons a little bit. We'll talk more, I'm sure, but honoring the losses too that come from the transition in seasons. So how do we do that?
Yeah. Are you saying, Michelle, like, how do we mark it?
Yeah, I think this was your question.
Oh, that would be such a metaphor for my life.
I wrote that. How do you mark the closing or chapter of a season?
Gosh, I hope this doesn't sound too superficial, but there's something about like the changing of the wardrobe. Like, when I just totally redid my closet, and there's something, I don't know if I should say spiritual, that might be too strong, but it felt so good to just reorient myself to, ooh, okay, I'm moving my really, woolly sweaters over there, and kind of going through that process. And yeah, that was a really lovely way. I think I closed down winter. I think too, decor around the house. Sylv and I have talked about decor in the house. Of like, I like having each season represented in my home, but also being intentional about, ooh, okay, I'm gonna put out something that feels more springy, and then putting away.
When you're saying that, made me think of I'm not as much of a wardrobe change person, but I was thinking about like changing the blankets, like having a lighter blanket versus a cozier, and then that made me think about like evening rituals too. I feel like that's a time where I really notice the transition in seasons, because summer I will be out on my porch until like I have to go in, and then like. But then in winter, fall, it's like coming into like a cozy cup of tea or something. So having the evening ritual transition, I think, is a nice way to honor that.
Ooh, yes. Yeah.
Yeah, and truly too, in a way, like the spring cleaning vibe. Like you always hear like the seasons shift, and then everyone just wants to like get rid of everything they own and like start fresh and like get some air in there and like open things up. And I think we naturally have these just in human traits around the seasons that we may not, and I think a lot of these rituals that we can build are about leaning into that, or about noticing, what am I already doing that is working for me, and how can I elevate that into a space of intention.
Have ideas of how people could be more intentional about those natural changes that occur?
Well, this is what came to my mind. I don't know if this makes sense, but like people always do clothing swaps in the spring, and I love that theme because first of all, it encourages you to kind of clean out your own space, go through your house, decide what you're wanting to hold on to and what you want to let go of, and then also it brings you into community around it, where you can kind of go back out into the world again. Spring is that time to like start exploring your community again and talk about like what these things meant to you, be able to reflect on like why you bought this or like why you are getting rid of this. And I think that like is just a good way to kind of share and kind of like have shared experiences. You know, a lot of times the seasons are a shared experience, and we do have shared stories, and it's really grounding to feel like you're part of something, instead of having to just kind of witness alone all the time.
Into a summer, like having a harvest swap or something, like bringing like your garden, vegetables or something, like something you've grown.
I love that idea. Siri.
It sounds so ominous. Siri.
What does feeling free look like for you in spring?
Oh, okay. In spring. This is embarrassing, but I like to walk around naked.
Oh, that's...
It's just like too cold the rest of the year. You don't want to. You want to be like covered up. But spring just feels like the opportunity to just kind of be like, I can let go of all that weight and just kind of like be just myself in the world. So that feels really free.
That sounds so freeing. Yes.
That sounds freeing for you. But I do feel that sense, like in the winter, that's one thing that oftentimes gets me down at some point, is having, like, I just sometimes want to walk outside my house without having to like think about 12 different layers and hats. And so that's exciting, like the first couple of times where you can just like, oh, I don't have to worry about what coat I'm wearing. I can just walk outside and just be me
out there. Yeah.
Oh, that is the best.
Yeah, I know. I can tell that I'm getting tired of winter because I will always I have my outside socks and my inside socks. You know, and I'll take the socks off from being outside and then go in and have my nice cozy socks, and then I just get tired of wearing socks. Like I don't care about the outside socks or the inside socks.
Wait, are you saying that with your outside socks you're just wearing them and nothing else? Or these are you're wearing different socks and shoes outside.
Yeah, wear socks for shoes and then socks for no.
I was just picturing you out and just like wearing your socks. That's an interesting choice.
I'll do it.
Yeah, why not?
Me feels so juicy when you are. I will go around and naked. That's
Always
true.
a good
Actually,
choice.
wait. Now I need to think about what window space wear. I feel this way when I'm like, oh, you feel that tension. I'll imagine something sprouting from the ground and just how, it's so liberating. And then you see it, you see these little sprouts, you're like, they're so cute. And but they had to go through a process.
It's true.
And it's just, there's such, trusting the process.
Yeah, you watch those little chicks hatching from eggs and you're just like, you got this. I can believe in you. I'm not gonna try to intervene. Like, it's really hard to watch. It's not a pleasant. You come out like all wet and just like gross, and like you don't. It's a whole process.
Birth is can be a little gnarly.
It's true. Like, you have to be able to embrace the mess. You have to be
embrace the
mess.
mess. That's it.
Yeah,
Yep.
It's got to be messy for it to become its next iteration, and I think sometimes we are afraid of that too. Like we want things to always like make sense and always be in our control and always be clean. And sometimes it's about making that mess and just being a wet little whatever you are until you figure out what you are
throughout your life.
Ooh. Well, I was born in Albuquerque, so it was like a very like desert type area, and like those areas like have seasons, but you don't notice it as much in the plants unless you're really looking for it. And so I kind of learned from that space how to like seek out like those little tiny shifts and how to be kind of more aware of when season is coming upon you, a change of season. And I always love the desert because I do just think that it kind of has this like eternal feeling to it of like it has its own seasons, but they're much larger than our seasons, and they're much, there's the movement is just bigger, and so just kind of witnessing what that looks like and slowing down into the space you're in, I really like. And then I moved a couple of times and then moved to Hawaii after that as a kid and spent like my early childhood in Hawaii. which is just like 80 degrees year round, and like has, if it rains, it's just this like beautiful flood of like warm water that just like fills the gutters and just runs down. And so as a kid, I would lie in the gutters and just let the water just like rush over me, and that was like a very cool experience of just kind of noticing like when change happens. Like as an adult especially, we don't like to go out in the rain, you know, and we don't like to be in a space where we're going to feel that uncomfortable, but when you completely surrender to it, you can just let it completely wash over you, and it's very transformative. So I think Hawaii was very good for like, I mean, it was a very, just an eternal summer type of a vibe, and so just getting to enjoy like nature. I was very explored, like I would explore the neighborhood, and I would go around and find all the gecko eggs underneath the rocks of every one of the neighbors' houses and bring them to my house, so we never had flies or mosquitoes or anything like that, you know. But like it allowed me to just feel this like freedom to explore and freedom to get out there and be a part of the world. So I think that was a big aspect. And then moving to Colorado, I had to kind of discover winter a little bit, discover like what happens when you're in that space of reflection where you can go outside, but there's costs to it, and you know there's limitations to it, and what happens when you're met with those limits as a person, like what do you do with those limits. And I've come to really enjoy like that silent, when you go snowshoeing or like skiing, going out into the wilderness and just feeling very alone, but kind of, but not isolated, not lonely, just kind of this silence of just kind of waiting, that waiting mind. So yeah.
The structure of snowflakes actually, like the sound kind of like travels through it, and so it literally does dampen the sound, so that's why it like feels more like quiet and peaceful when it's snowing.
I never knew that.
Yeah. Cool.
It's cool. They should create like the sound.
So yeah, the idea of growing up in a place where you have to look more closely to see the change of seasons is, yeah, that's interesting.
That like obvious transition from one season to another.
No, not really. I feel like, I mean, I do appreciate growing up there. I think it's really cool. What's really cool about Vermont is that it's the most rural state in the country. It's the only state where more people live in rural settings than in cities.
I did not know that, Michelle.
Yes. It's a fun fact. I
That
mean,
is a very
Wyoming
fun
is
fact.
very rural too. We get that, but there's still cities there where there isn't in Vermont.
Oh, that's
So,
surprising.
yeah, so I think what was really cool about it is like that you did naturally get that connection because it's so like agricultural, and we would like go to farms for field trips. We would go see like maple syrup tapping. Literally, I went to school with a person who we would like buy their farm's milk in our grocery store. You know, like that's,
Wow.
you feel a lot more connected in that way to the seasons.
Connecting with what landscape is my heart needing to connect with. I'm a big traveler. I love exploring different cities, different countries, states, you name it. And I think for me, as I've gotten older, I've been able to have that awareness of, I'm going to this place, right, because of the landscape, right, the wisdom of the land and what it's going to teach me. And it's so interesting to see how that maps on seasonally. So I feel like that's something I've been really, just reflecting on is, where am I going and why?
Do you find that you're drawn to certain places in certain seasons? That like in your travels, you kind of go back to the same place at the same time?
Honestly, it feels a little all over the place. But let me think on that, Siri. This is going to be another like macro question where, give me a couple days.
We'll post the answer.
Yes,
on the
absolutely,
website.
absolutely.
Ritualsisterspod.com. Okay, that made me think of where we're at seasonally, kind of in our personal life. It is clashing with the season that we're at, like physically in the world.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay.
Like if you're in Hawaii and it's eternal summer and you're like going through something hard, what do you do?
This is why I don't know if I could live somewhere that doesn't have 4 seasons. Like, truly, I've thought about this of could I do it? Because that to me would be so disorienting, but I've always lived in a place with seasons, like very distinct. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think there are activities that represent, like,
Yeah.
the season is a symbol of something that you can also meet with other sorts of activities. So, like, what do you do in winter that you find enjoyable? You read, you know, you get warm, you cozy up with blankets, you drink tea, you have cozy foods, you know, you journal or like reflect a lot. You take a lot of time for solo time, you know, and so you can do that. Like if you're in Hawaii, for example, you know, you could take like a staycation, like a shut-in or something like that. Like say, hey, to my friends, I'm not going to be using my phone for a week, and I'm just going to be MIA unless you really need me. And then just kind of focusing on like what happens when I surround myself with silence, when I get rid of distractions or obligations, then what am I free to do? And it doesn't have to be productive time. You don't have to use that whole time journaling, because the winter is about not doing, it's about the making space for something. And so, you know, maybe surrounding yourself with silence and no obligations could be a place of like real good internal processing.
So to talk about like transitions, I'm curious for you, Siri, how you, especially thinking about those tougher seasons of life, how do you move through those transitions? But also if you're tapping into any like seasonal wisdom around those, but how you work through life transitions that are hard. I know you spoke to a little bit with like COVID, and it sounds like that was a really hard time.
Yeah, I did try to go outside as much as I could. I do think it was helpful just to feel connected to something outside of my own world. I did start to I was having some health issues during that time period too, so I started to get kind of stuck into my little cave a little bit, and so opportunities to like get out of that space were really helpful. I love the sauna. I find the sauna really
I'm so glad I wanted the sauna to come up. Sirius changed the game with the sauna.
Yeah.
Please share more.
Yeah, I think it's just like a quick fix for like the transformative vibe, because it's all about like releasing a lot of things and just kind of allowing yourself to then like take in nutrients that are good for you, and kind of like just that transition vibe of like flushing out the old and allowing in the new. So I like to go do like the Norwegian way, because that's my mom is Norwegian, and so we like you go into the sauna and like put the water on the rocks and let it get like super super hot until you feel like you're gonna die, and then like jumping out into like the snow or into a cold plunge or something like that, like kind of shocking yourself with that experience. And I think that's a great symbol of like transition in general. It's like it's a shock and it kind of sucks. And that first moment when you jump into the cold water, you're just like, I don't know why I did this. This is a terrible idea. Like,
Truly.
I feel extremely uncomfortable. And like, but then like if you sit with that for just a couple seconds longer, you get this like rush of endorphins and just good feelings, and you feel refreshed and alive, and like you're vibrating. And so I think it helps a lot with just this feeling of like shift. I also do like an ecstatic dance group once a week that I find very therapeutic. Yeah, I find it very therapeutic. Like I think it just like helps you go to a space of movement, and like movement, like even if you don't feel like it, is really good to help make a shift. Like the world is shifting physically around us. We need to shift physically as well. So
Beautifully said. Wow.
Yeah. I do think the body, embodiment is a big factor in change. So how can you reconnect to your body? How can you reconnect to what your body's feeling, and not try to just dissociate or like focus on tasks or externalize things? How do you kind of check back in?
how do we process difficult times through the seasons? That's a question.
Yeah.
Curious, like finding. I also do ecstatic dance too, and I love like in winter I love to light a candle and do ecstatic dance by myself by candlelight. It's just like there's something about movement when you just like kind of let yourself see like what does my body want to do right now, and just move, then you just feel different afterwards.
Yeah. That's cool that you mentioned, I'll let you think for 1 second, but that you mentioned lighting a candle. I think bringing the elements in can be really helpful too, you know, like it kind of adds an element of ritual and makes it feel more intentional, and sometimes we just need that moment to set an intention to like really reconnect with what we want. And so lighting that fire, or having water near you, like being in water or close to water, you know, just letting yourself really go put your feet in grass, like touch grass. They say that, and that might feel like an insult, but it's real. Like sometimes you just need to touch grass. You just have to.
The other day I came home from work and I was like, I just want to lie in the grass, it's nice out. And then it was like dead grass, so it was like all over me, and I like sat on my couch and it was just everywhere. I was like, okay, that was a learning moment, but it was worth it.
I feel like I'm such a Taurus in this way, where I'm very sensory, and so whether it's, you know, paying attention to like fabrics, like what I'm putting on my body, or what I'm feeding myself, you know, what food is nourishing me, that can really help me during transition, because I can quickly go to panic mode. So I need things that are gonna like nurture, soothe, and really slow me down.
Exercise around spring. If you want to follow along, you can, or you can just listen and just take it in. So if you start just by closing your eyes and just noticing how you feel in your body. And then just imagine that there's a little seed planted in you somewhere. Something that you've been quietly growing. Something that maybe feels like it's ready to take those first little moments of blossoming. Just connect to that somewhere in your body. And even if you don't know exactly what it is, that's okay. It could just be a feeling right now. And then just allow that little seed to start to blossom a little bit. Maybe shakes off the earth around it. Maybe a little leaf pops out, or maybe even a beautiful flower rises. Just noticing what that feels like to allow this thing that you've been growing to blossom. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes again.
You look fantastic.
Oh,
Great job.
Jay.
I can't wait to hear the next podcast episode. But super random question. Have you thought about using AI to help you with your podcasting? Maybe like marketing or like
Was this a
content creation or just
AI is bad for the environment, Jay.
it's up and coming.
I think maybe.
Well, definitely for the transcripts. So on the website, we'll have the episodes and we will have transcripts listed, which I think is just really nice. I know when I listen to podcasts, I'm like, oh, what was that resource they talked about? And so I love that feature.
Yeah,
I forget what program you bought, but
we use something. It's called Descript. So when we upload an episode, it will transcribe it for us. So
yes.
I think there's a question behind you. I don't know.
Oh yeah.
Your name, please, and what's your question?
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Sandy.
Hi, Sandy.
You're Asian too.
Aww.
Just wondering if your podcast is going to be geared towards both males and females, or one side or the other. What? Just curious.
Yeah. I would say we're open. Yeah, we're gearing it to really anybody. We believe that anybody can benefit from ritual. So,
Yeah, really want to leave it open to everyone and everyone, and being really intentional when we do have our guest list, trying to get a ton of different voices on the pod. So, and Michelle and I are open. So if y'all are like, oh, you know, I know someone that, you know, I mean, please let us know. We're really open. We're trying to have a wide variety of topics and people. That feels really important.
Please, and what's your question?
My name is Evelina, and I have a question in regards to, I know you all talked about how to transition through different seasons. We have a lot of access to nature. And we have a lot of access to nature here, but for people who don't have as much access to nature, what are some of the things that you recommend in terms of transitioning through seasons, moving into, now we're going into spring? What would that look like for you all? Not as much, like 10 minutes away, a mountain.
Yes.
Evelyn is from New Jersey, so she speaks from experience. I'm so glad you came to the full moon ceremony again.
Oh yes. Yes. The moon is always there. I think you can see it in the city too, right? Yes.
Your name and your question, please.
My name is Belle, and I guess the question I had was like, do you think the change of seasons is like important for us to be like present more so in our lives? Because like life moves so fast, and like the changing of the seasons can help us find like, you know, a present sense of ourselves.
I love that. Yes.
Yes.
We're all like,
yes,
yes,
everything
Belle,
says
yes.
yes. Yeah, I think that it's such a big part of ritual is like that's kind of what we want to do with the podcast is help people honor these transitions in their life, and the seasons can be part of that because sometimes like something big isn't happening in our life, but there's always this, unless you live in a place where there's less seasons, but it's this natural way to pause and reflect.
Yeah. That's such a great question. Belle, right? Yes. Belle, yes. And a phrase I love to say, and I probably maybe say it too much, but nature is our best mirror. And so I think there's something we can be so self-critical. Like I know I can be so hard on myself, and yet when I look at nature, it just so much of that criticism washes away. And I think that can help us through any stage we're in. Yes.
When my birthday is, and it got me thinking of like how fall is kind of the start of my personal year because I was born in the fall. So I'm wondering if any of you have any birthday rituals that you like to do to kind of close out your year and start the new one.
Natasha, and I promise we didn't even plant this question.
No, did not plant this.
Siri, I think you should tell about your birthday this year.
This year?
And the ritual, well, whichever, and the shedding skin. Siri is our ritual queen, which is why, thank you for being our special guest, whichever one.
Well, I want to talk about the shedding skin one because that was so fun.
That was so fun.
Like, we were talking about the like every 7 years, and so I had a birthday that I was like, I want everyone to bring a second skin so that they can like shed that skin and like talk about what's next. So we kind of had everyone wear onesies, which was really fun.
A wide variety of onesies.
Yeah, a lot of onesies. And then we had a fun party, and then we sat down and just kind of had everyone talk about like what's the skin that you're shedding, what are you trying to like release and like go up and say goodbye to, and then what are you hoping these new cells will do, what are you trying to grow, you know. And I do feel like my birthday involves a lot of those sorts of questions of like what's past. This last year we did some burning of things, which I love burning things.
Love burning things.
therapeutic.
I now love burning things too.
Yeah, I think we need to do like a whole episode just on fire rituals because we love them. We love them.
Ooh, yeah, and then bring people into the fire gathering. That'd be cool.
From the ash, the new things grow.
Yes. Yeah. Do you have any birthday rituals?
I feel like
You're really intentional about your birthday too.
yeah, I feel like I take it year by year, like kind of what I feel like I'm needing that year. This last year I ran 33 miles for my 33rd birthday, so that was what I needed. So I don't know what that says about me, but
Lots of healing.
Hurting and healing.
Yeah. Ooh, I like that phrase, hurting and healing. Mm. My birthday rituals. Let me think on that, Natasha.
Sparks you and draws you? I think that's a really good question, because one of the pitfalls of ritual is that it can become like superstitious, that we start to think that like the ritual itself is the thing that has meaning or magic to it, and like there can be magic in doing the same thing over and over again. There's nothing wrong with that. If you hold on to that as like the source of meaning, then you're again externalizing and disconnecting from yourself. And so I love that idea of just like letting it be weird, letting it not make sense, like letting it feel messy, and just but just kind of moving in what way feels like it's feeding that place. Means that spark.
Or one of our actually our first episode that's going to be dropping tomorrow is about kind of art and what defines art and artists. And that's just an example of if I notice like myself saying like, oh, I'm not an artist. Like, I mean, clearly we all have seen what I produce, but also who cares? Like if I'm creating art, aren't I an artist in that moment? You know, so I think noticing when we hit up against that wall of like that label doesn't fit me, like exploring that, why not, why can't it be me?
Rituals, things like that. I think that a lot of us might feel lacking in ritual in our lives, and so what I'm wondering is if you all have any tips about how people can discover the rituals that we have just in our life, like what are some rituals that we're already doing that we might not just have the intention around it as a ritual, or might not see it as a ritual, like how to connect to that, tap into that a bit more.
Lovely question, Hope. I totally agree with what you're saying in that I think for so many of us, we are already doing this and we just maybe aren't fully aware of it, or we might want to add some intentionality to what we're already doing. Like for example, showering. I used to just shower and not think about it. Like I was just kind of like on autopilot with my showers. But now I like listen to either two different artists when I shower, and I have some imagery around it, and I have like my whole process. So it feels like when I don't shower, I think people do think I'm like, oh, diva, she has to shower. But it's such a like, it is the start of a new day. And like, that's such an important marking for me. So I'd be curious for you all, maybe over this next week, to just notice, oh, what are things I'm doing every day, whether it's how I start my day or end my day. Those bookends can be really powerful, and maybe if there's one you want to infuse more intentionality or more heart, more soul into.
I think another idea is having an object that has meaning to it. Like when you said shower, like I have some like a shower scrub that I got for like a full moon ritual, and so like every time I use that, I'm like, okay, what am I washing away right now? Or I used to teach yoga, and when we went through our yoga teacher training, we had a mindful meal where we each like picked a bowl, and that was like, as we were eating from it, that's like our mindful bowl, and we like took it home for that purpose. And this was when I was in college, so this was years ago, and to this day, every time I take that bowl, it reminds me to be mindful. So something like that can be a good way.
Meaningful objects, yeah, I love that, Michelle. Because I really connect with ritual daily, but you were saying you're more think about ritual in these bigger.
Yeah, I think I don't like to be tied down to a daily ritual, so I like to be more like spontaneous, like maybe it's just like, oh, I just feel like doing something today, or there's a specific event that I want to mark. So I think you can do it whatever way works best for you. If you are more of that, I just want something habitual, or you don't want the pressure, you just want to show up to ritual when you want to, then either way works.
yeah, and if any of you try anything, let us know. I mean, truly, it's like so fun to kind of hear, what you're noticing.
Chelsea's our content manager.
Thank you so much. We couldn't do it without you.
Really trying some new things around here. But trying to get creative. So yeah, take some time to be creative. This has been wonderful. You all are amazing. I'm curious about if you have family rituals, like when you grew up, any family rituals or even still today, that are really more like relational or family-centered rituals.
I love that question. Oh my gosh, we are such MFTs. Yeah, shout out marriage and family therapist.
I feel like, Sarah, you were talking about this. Do you feel comfortable sharing? Sorry to put you on the spot. With your family, you said you grew up with a lot of ritual.
Yeah, we had a lot of ritual in my family. My mom loved the solstice and she loved the season change, and so we'd always do like a solstice gathering. She'd always light a fire and she'd read a poem and we just kind of reflect on it together.
That is precious. I'm obsessed with your family. Aww.
We would often like sing a song before dinner as a family, which was kind of our most usual thing. Just something to kind of like.
I know, dream family.
And we would always, as a family, take a trip to like Santa Fe or Taos in New Mexico, because New Mexico was like a big kind of spiritual place for my whole family. And so we would go like every Thanksgiving for a long time and just eat green chili and just like reconnect to the land and like look at art and all that stuff. That was really meaningful. But my sister just had a kid in September, and it's cool to see how ritual shifts like around children. Like a lot of times tradition matters because it's so meaningful for the kids. Like they love to be able to like look forward to something, and a lot of the aspect of tradition or holidays and stuff is like you build up to it, you talk about it, you prepare for it, you get in the zone around it, and then you get to celebrate it, and then you reflect on it. Like, you know, with Christmas you get to keep your gifts, or like I think that's kind of a cool thing to think about, is like the stages of ritual, of like how meaningful it can be to be getting ready for something and what space you get into in that way. So it's cool to have a baby in the family again, because I do think now, you know, when we were all just like adults without grandparents around to be the grounding space, it was a little bit like, what do we do right now? Like, what is our tradition? What is our ritual?
I resonate with that so much. So I was taking a walk last night, and my grandma Sadie, came through. And now I'm like, oh, I understand, because so many of our rituals, our family rituals, were because of her. And it's just so wild when we think about our grandparents, if for those of us that had close relationships or know about them, they're such a compass. Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah, I know you talked about that you grew up like around just like a lot of extended family too.
I really miss that. I love living in Colorado, but it does feel sometimes like a sacrifice not being near them. Yeah. Oh boy.
Question. Always Chelsea bringing the tears.
No, she knows they're the medicine.
I do think I do think though when you talk about ritual, that's the way you stay connected, like with that family as well, whether they're passed on or just somewhere else.
Yeah. So true.
Yeah. I drew gather your nuts. It made me giggle.
What's on it, Michelle, for those that can't see?
It's a squirrel.
Oh.
Good, Hannah.
Mine says release expectations.
And yours has the parrots. They're like cute parrots. And mine said, tell shame to suck it. Which tracks from what I worked on in therapy this week. But I I love whether it's pulling cards or like archetypal work. I know we talked a bit about imagery. That is such a way for me to connect spiritually.
Hi, fellow MFT. So,
shout out! And what's your name?
I'm Anne. I loved really what you said about the different life transitions and how the seasons kind of resonate. What's some way of like directing kind of some rituals for when maybe partners are in different seasons, or families are in like different season, and there's just kind of little not total alignment.
Okay, we should do an episode on that, and let us know if you're interested. That is so deep and so important, because how often does that happen? Yeah.
I feel like in some way, some of it could be if one person is in more of that like spring or summer, like full of energy, and the other person is more like the fall or winter, like using some of that spring summer energy to like bolster that person and be a support to them. Like, I mean, when we did our relay race, like I was having this beautiful like spring experience. Well, unfortunately, my husband, who's definitely not here in the audience, was like going through a really hard time at home. And we ended up having to put down our cat this week. But I feel like I was able to bring some of that energy back with me and like be a support during that time. And I hope that I was.
Oh, that's such a great example, Michelle, because it was amazing on this trip to see how she, like, you would notice things because you were like honoring where Jay was at, but also very much still enjoying yourself, and that can be hard. Like, it can be hard to be away, and then you're guilty, and that can eat you up inside. So witnessing that was really special.
There's that line from a Nako song that's like, a piece of my peace will be with you always.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody's crying. Crying helps. Crying's a good ritual.
Crying is good.
Involves radical acceptance too, of allowing people to be in their own season and trusting that seasons change and that they need to be where they're at. And I think that can be a really hard thing to witness when you're in a relationship with someone, is you want the best for them and you want to see them grow into their best, most shining selves. But sometimes, like, winter sure doesn't look like a lot's going on, but a lot is happening under the surface. And so, I think a lot of times just allowing it to be a season that you don't resonate with for somebody else also encourages, like, radical acceptance is a place of growth. It encourages people to say, okay, I'm here for a reason, I'm here for a purpose, so what is that purpose?
Thank you all for coming.
Thank you so much. And the episodes drop tomorrow.
Yes. Yeah, check us out. Wherever you get your podcasts, you can find us. If you want to rate us, like us, I don't know.
What's the website again?
RitualSistersPod.com. Yes.
We're also on Instagram, but truly, thank you everyone so much, and we'll linger. So please, stick around if you want a card pull. Thank you so much.